Bank manager ignores black man for 2 hours, regrets it when the board arrives. The tension in the room was suffocating. Marcus Tate stood in front of the bank manager's office, his patience stretched thin, his jaw tight with frustration. The sleek, frosted glass door stood between him and the meeting he had scheduled nearly 2 hours ago, a meeting that had been confirmed twice. Yet here he was, still waiting, while at least half a dozen other customers had come and gone, their transactions handled swiftly and without delay. Lisa Calloway, the receptionist, barely looked up from her computer screen. "Sir, I've already told you. Ms. Sharp is finishing up with another client. She'll be with you soon." Marcus exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. "Soon?" he repeated, his voice low but firm. "You said that an hour ago. I've seen at least 6 people walk in after me and get taken straight to the back. You expect me to believe this is a coincidence?" Lisa's expression didn't change. If anything, she looked annoyed. "Sir, please have a seat. She's aware you're waiting." He didn't move. He had waited long enough. Marcus turned toward the executive hallway, stepping forward with purpose. Lisa's voice sharpened. "Sir, you can't just walk back there." He didn't care. He pushed the door open. Inside, the hallway stretched out before him, lined with private offices. Some doors were open, revealing hushed conversations and neatly dressed bankers finalizing transactions. But at the end of the hall, through the large window of her office, he saw her. Linda Sharp, the bank manager, sitting at her desk, alone. There was no client, no urgent meeting, just her, idly scrolling through her phone, sipping a coffee as if she had all the time in the world. Marcus clenched his jaw. So, this is what busy looked like. The moment she saw him, Linda straightened in her chair, her expression shifting from casual indifference to mild annoyance. She set her coffee down and stood, smoothing the front of her blazer. "Mr. Tate," she said, her voice clipped. "You should have waited to be called." Marcus stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He was done waiting. "I did wait," he said. 2 hours. Linda blinked, her composure faltering just slightly. "There must have been a scheduling issue." "Right," Marcus said flatly. "A scheduling issue. Funny how that issue didn't seem to affect anyone else." For a moment, she said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she sighed and gestured toward the chair across from her desk. "Please, sit. Let's discuss your loan application." Marcus didn't move. "No, I think we need to discuss something else first." Linda's fingers twitched. "Excuse me? I want to know why I was made to wait while others were seen immediately," Marcus said, his voice controlled but firm. "Why people without appointments were brought back before me. Why I was lied to." He tilted his head slightly. "Was it my business proposal you had a problem with? Or just me?" Linda's face paled just slightly. "I don't like what you're implying, Mr. Tate." "I don't like it either," Marcus said, "but I know what I saw." Linda shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't prepared for this, not for a client who wasn't going to just smile, accept the disrespect, and move on. "Look," she said finally, trying to regain control. "I understand your frustration, but we've been extremely busy today." Marcus let out a short laugh. "Busy?" He leaned forward slightly. "I was watching Ms. Sharp. I saw a woman walk in without an appointment and get escorted back in less than 3 minutes. I saw 2 different men show up, both taken inside while I sat there like an idiot." He folded his arms. "So tell me, how does that work?" Linda's jaw tightened. "I don't have to explain our internal scheduling to you." Marcus met her stare, unblinking. "No, but you will." The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. Linda knew she had been caught, and she was scrambling for a way to regain control. But before she could respond, there was a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The door to the hallway opened again. Marcus turned just as three sharply dressed men stepped inside, and suddenly everything changed. The moment Linda saw them, her entire demeanor transformed. Her back straightened, her expression shifted from irritation to something that almost resembled fear. Because these weren't just any men, they were executives. And at the front of them was Richard Langford, CEO of Westbridge National Bank. Linda's face lost all color. Marcus, however, simply smirked. Because now it was her turn to wait. Linda's throat tightened as Richard Langford, the CEO of Westbridge National Bank, stepped inside her office. The room suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. The man exuded authority, his presence alone shifting the balance of power in a way that was impossible to ignore. His tailored navy blue suit was crisp, his silver tie perfectly knotted, and his piercing blue eyes swept the room with a quiet calculation that made it clear he already knew something was wrong. Behind him stood two other executives, both watching with interest but saying nothing. Marcus remained silent as well, standing near the chair Linda had so rudely made him wait for. He didn't need to say anything, because now she was the one under scrutiny. Richard's gaze finally landed on Marcus, and his entire face lit up with recognition. "Marcus Tate," he said, stepping forward with a broad smile. "What the hell are you doing here?" Linda stiffened. Marcus smirked. "Apparently, I was waiting for a meeting." His voice was calm but laced with something sharper. "For about 2 hours." A deadly silence fell over the room. Richard's expression immediately darkened. He turned sharply toward Linda. "You mean to tell me," he said, voice dangerously smooth, "that Marcus Tate has been waiting out there for 2 hours?" Linda's fingers clenched around the papers on her desk. She opened her mouth, scrambling for an excuse. There must have been a scheduling mix-up. Richard's eyes narrowed. A scheduling mix-up? Linda swallowed hard. Marcus tilted his head, watching the unraveling unfold. "Funny thing about that," he said casually. "It didn't seem to be an issue for anyone else. I saw at least 6 people, some without appointments, get taken back before me." He shrugged. "Guess I just got unlucky." Richard's jaw ticked. He turned toward one of the executives standing behind him. "Dan," he said coolly, "pull up the visitor logs. I want to see exactly who checked in and when." Dan, a tall, no-nonsense man in a gray suit, nodded immediately and stepped out to make the call. Linda went pale. The tension in the room thickened. Richard folded his arms, his gaze never leaving her. "Tell me, Linda," he said, voice laced with a deadly calm, "what was the real reason Mr. Tate wasn't seen?" Linda hesitated. She knew there was no good answer. If she admitted the truth, that she had deliberately ignored Marcus based on her own biases, her career was over. But lying, that wasn't an option either. Because Richard already knew. Linda swallowed hard. "I wasn't aware of the issue," she finally said. Marcus let out a quiet chuckle. "That's interesting," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because I was sitting right in front of your receptionist for 2 hours. I even asked her to check in with you. Twice." He raised a brow. "Are you saying she didn't?" Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no way out. At that moment, Dan returned, his phone still in hand. "Just got the logs," he said, his expression unreadable as he handed the phone to Richard. Richard took one glance at the screen, and his expression hardened. He slowly turned the phone toward Linda. Marcus didn't need to see it to know it was bad. Linda's eyes darted to the screen, and her breath caught. There, in clear, indisputable records, were the check-in times of every client that had come in that morning. Marcus's name was bold and unmistakable, his appointment logged at 10:58 a.m., and beneath it, the names of every single person who had arrived after him, all of whom had been taken inside before him. Linda's hands trembled slightly as she clenched them in her lap. There was no denying it now. Richard's voice dropped to an icy level. "You had Marcus Tate waiting out there for 2 hours," he said, his words slow and deliberate, "while you took in multiple walk-ins." Linda's lips parted slightly, panic rising in her throat, but Richard wasn't done. "Do you have any idea who you just disrespected?" he said, voice quiet but sharp. "Do you know how many businesses Marcus Tate has built? How many clients he works with?" His eyes flashed with disbelief. "Or were you too busy playing gatekeeper to do your damn job?" Linda flinched as if she had been slapped. Marcus watched calmly, allowing every second of her discomfort to sink in. He wasn't the type to enjoy humiliating someone. But this was justice, because she had sat back and let this happen. And now, she was feeling what it was like to be dismissed. Linda's voice finally cracked. I had no idea." "That's the problem," Richard cut her off. His voice was cold. "You should have." He turned toward Dan. "Effective immediately. Linda Sharp is on indefinite suspension pending further review." The room fell silent. Linda's eyes widened in shock. "Wait, please, Mr. Langford, But Richard's gaze didn't waver.
"You embarrassed this bank today," he said. "You made me look incompetent. You made this institution look discriminatory." His voice turned sharp. "You let your bias dictate who was worth your time, and guess what?" He gestured toward Marcus. "You picked the wrong damn person." Linda looked like she might faint. Marcus, however, simply smiled. "Seems like Soon finally caught up with you." Richard glanced back at Marcus, his expression shifting. "Marcus, But Marcus shook his head. "I think I've wasted enough of my time here today." He picked up his briefcase, adjusting his suit. "You'll hear from my legal team." Richard nodded stiffly. He wasn't about to argue. As Marcus turned toward the door, he passed Lisa Calloway, the receptionist who had brushed him off so effortlessly, her face pale, her hands gripping the desk. He paused just slightly and met her wide, panicked eyes. "You might want to update your definition of soon," he said smoothly, before walking away. The doors swung shut behind him, and in that moment, the weight of everything finally sank in, not just for Linda, not just for Lisa, but for everyone in that bank. Because Marcus Tate had walked in as just another client, and walked out as the man who changed everything. The sound of his polished shoes striking the marble floors was steady, controlled. Every step Marcus took toward the exit of Westbridge National Bank was deliberate. He wasn't in a rush, but they were. Behind him, he could already hear the frantic whispers. Employees exchanged worried glances. Someone was quietly typing away at their computer, probably emailing someone higher up, trying to get ahead of the inevitable fallout. Marcus smirked. He had seen this play out before, a company scrambling to cover its tracks, pretending to be shocked by something they had likely ignored for years. But the difference? This time, the damage was already done. As he reached the door, a voice called out, "Mr. Tate, please, just one more moment." Marcus stopped but didn't turn around immediately. He knew exactly who it was. Richard Langford, the CEO, was catching up, his polished demeanor barely hiding his urgency. Marcus slowly turned, adjusting the cuff of his expensive suit as if he had all the time in the world. Richard forced a smile, but there was something else in his expression now, concern. "I understand if you're upset," Richard started. Marcus raised a brow. "If?" Richard exhaled sharply, adjusting his tie. "Look, I'll be the first to admit that what happened today was unacceptable," he said. "I take full responsibility." Marcus studied him. Did he mean that? Or was this just another PR move? Before Marcus could answer, one of the other board members, Daniel Porter, stepped forward. He was shorter than Richard, but his posture was tense, like a man trying to manage a crisis before it spiraled out of control. "Mr. Tate, you and I both know that this—" He gestured vaguely toward the bank, toward the mess they had created for themselves. "Doesn't reflect what Westbridge stands for." Marcus tilted his head slightly. I don't? Daniel hesitated. I mean, it shouldn't. Marcus let out a low chuckle. This was textbook corporate damage control. First, they try to downplay the issue. Then, they try to distance themselves from it. And finally, they offer a deal. I have a proposal, Richard cut in. One that I think will benefit us both. Marcus crossed his arms, feigning curiosity. Go on. Richard's shoulders relaxed slightly, like a man who thought he had regained control. Westbridge National is always looking for ways to improve, Richard said smoothly, and I can't think of a better way than having someone with your expertise work with us directly. Marcus stayed silent, because there it was, the deal. We want to bring you on, Richard continued, as a senior advisor, someone who can help us address issues like today, prevent them from happening in the future. Full autonomy. You'd answer directly to me. Marcus laughed softly, shaking his head. You really think hiring me is going to fix this? He asked. Richard blinked. Well, Marcus took a step forward, lowering his voice. Richard, he said smoothly, you don't need a diversity consultant to tell you not to ignore high-profile black clients for 2 hours. Richard stiffened. Marcus smirked. Or is that too complicated for your team to figure out? The silence between them stretched. Marcus could see the flicker of irritation in Richard's expression now, the moment where a powerful man realizes he doesn't have the upper hand anymore. And Marcus? He was enjoying every second of it. Finally, Richard forced another smile. Mr. Tate, I understand why you're frustrated. Frustrated? Marcus cut in, his voice turning sharper. No, Richard, frustrated is when you get a wrong coffee order. He took another step forward. I'm insulted. Richard's jaw tightened. Marcus let the words sink in before continuing. You want me to help you? Fine. I'll give you some free advice, since we both know my time is valuable. He watched as Richard's hands curled slightly into fists, but the man didn't say a word. Marcus lowered his voice. The problem isn't a training issue, he said. It isn't about oversights or mistakes. He leaned in just slightly. It's about the fact that I didn't look like someone you needed to prioritize. The words hit their mark. Richard's expression shifted, like he had just been punched in the stomach. Marcus gave him a mocking smile. But you figured it out real quick when you saw my name, huh? Richard's face hardened, but he still said nothing. Daniel cleared his throat, stepping in. Mr. Tate, surely there's a way to move forward that benefits us both. Marcus cut him off with a smirk. Oh, I already moved forward. The real question is, how do you plan to clean up your mess? Richard exhaled slowly. I assume you'll be talking to the press? Marcus chuckled. You assume correctly. Richard's lips thinned into a hard line. What would it take, he said finally, for you to reconsider? Marcus took out his phone and scrolled casually. Then, he turned the screen toward Richard. It was a drafted email, addressed to every major news outlet. Subject line, a lesson in banking, when soon means never. Richard's expression darkened. Marcus smirked. You still think this is about a paycheck, Richard? Richard exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. Marcus, let's talk. Marcus smiled and slipped his phone back into his pocket. Oh, we will, he said lightly. But next time? His voice dropped just slightly. It'll be on my terms. And with that, he turned and walked out. The moment Marcus stepped out of Westbridge National Bank, he knew they would panic. He could already see it. The frantic emails, the hushed phone calls, the urgent damage control meetings happening behind closed doors. They had underestimated him. And now? It was time to show them why that was their biggest mistake. He strolled toward his car, feeling the weight of his phone in his pocket. He had everything he needed to turn this into a PR disaster for Westbridge. The treatment he endured, the blatant favoritism, the arrogance of power. It was all there. All it needed was a platform. As he unlocked his car, his phone buzzed. Richard Langford. Marcus let it ring. Twice. Then he answered. You really thought I'd just walk away, didn't you? A pause. Marcus, let's be reasonable. Richard's voice was strained, trying to sound calm but failing. We both know that this kind of thing, misunderstandings happen. Marcus laughed softly. You think this was a misunderstanding? He said. Let me spell it out for you, Richard. I was the only black man in that lobby, and I was the only one waiting. Another pause. Marcus could hear the tension in Richard's breathing. I want to fix this, Richard said finally. Marcus smirked. There it was. Now, they weren't just acknowledging the problem, they were begging him to help them fix it. Too bad. I'm sure you do, Marcus said, but I don't think that's my problem anymore. Marcus, listen. Marcus ended the call. Then he opened his email. The press release was already drafted. Headline, A CEO's Worst Nightmare, When Banks Decide Who Deserves Service. He stared at it for a second. Then he smirked and hit send. Westbridge's PR team was about to have a very bad day. Within an hour, the article was everywhere. Business Insider, Forbes, local news stations. The headline caught fire. Bank CEO scrambles after business leader reveals racism in his own institution. Social media exploded. People started sharing their own experiences of being ignored, dismissed, and treated like second-class citizens in banks. Westbridge National wasn't just facing Marcus Tate anymore. They were facing the entire internet. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Because at that very moment, Richard Langford was scheduled to speak at a major banking conference. A conference about diversity and inclusion. Marcus almost felt bad for him. Almost. A few hours later, Marcus was sitting at his office, sipping whiskey when his phone buzzed again. Richard Langford, he answered. This time, he let the silence stretch. I assume you've seen the news? Marcus finally said. Richard exhaled sharply. Marcus, we need to talk. In person. Marcus leaned back in his chair, enjoying the moment. Oh, now you want to meet? He said. What happened? Did your staff forget to schedule an appointment? A beat of silence. Then Richard's voice dropped. Come in, tomorrow, no waiting, just you and me. Marcus smirked. See, Richard? You're learning already. He ended the call. Tomorrow was going to be fun, too.
The moment Marcus Tate walked through the glass doors of Westbridge National Bank, the atmosphere shifted. The last time he was here, they had made him wait, ignored him, treated him like he wasn't worth their time. Now, eyes followed him. Tension hung in the air. Employees whispered behind the counter, their nervous glances darting in his direction. Because today they knew exactly who he was, and they knew why he was here. Marcus adjusted his watch and walked up to the front desk. Melissa, the same receptionist who had barely looked at him before, stiffened when she saw him. This time she didn't make him wait. Good morning, Mr. Tate, she said quickly, her voice almost too polite. Mr. Langford is expecting you. I'll take you to his office right away. Marcus didn't say a word. He just smirked and followed her. That's what he thought. The office was large, sleek, expensive, everything you'd expect from a CEO's domain. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and a marble conference table stretched across the center of the room. Richard Langford was already standing when Marcus walked in. He didn't smile, didn't offer a handshake. He looked exhausted. Marcus took his time, sat down, made himself comfortable. Richard, he said smoothly, I assume you've had a rough morning? Langford exhaled, rubbing his temple. You have no idea. Marcus chuckled. Oh, I do. He leaned back, watching Langford squirm. The damage had been done. The backlash from the article had been swift and brutal. Westbridge National's name was all over the news. Their public relations team was in meltdown mode. Investors were calling, clients were rethinking their business, and worst of all, the board was furious, which meant Langford was desperate. And Marcus, he loved every second of it. Langford sat down, folding his hands. All right, Marcus. What do you want? Marcus smirked. There it is, he said. The part where you finally admit you need my help. Langford's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it, because he couldn't. Marcus let the silence stretch, then leaned forward. I want accountability. Langford frowned. Meaning? Marcus tilted his head. Meaning Melissa gets fired. Meaning Linda Kramer. Gone. Meaning every employee who thinks it's acceptable to ignore clients based on how they look? Retrained. And not some corporate checkbox training. Real training. Langford stiffened. Marcus, let's be reasonable. Marcus laughed. Oh, I am. I could have gone further, Richard. I could have let this story drag out for weeks. But I'm giving you a chance to fix it. Langford studied him. And if I agree to all this, what do I get? Marcus smiled. I go public with a follow-up statement. Langford narrowed his eyes. Marcus continued. I tell the press that we had a productive meeting, that Westbridge National acknowledged the issue and is making real changes, that this isn't just another corporation brushing discrimination under the rug. Langford leaned back, considering. Marcus could see the wheels turning. If they didn't fix this, the fallout would be even worse. Finally, Langford sighed. Fine, he said. You'll get everything you asked for. Marcus stood. Good choice. But just as he turned toward the door, Langford spoke again. Marcus, wait. Marcus paused, glancing over his shoulder. He had expected resistance. What he hadn't expected was the shift in Langford's tone. It was almost regretful. Langford exhaled and shook his head. I can't fix the past, but I can fix this. And I will. Marcus watched him for a moment. He had heard empty promises before. Langford must have noticed the skepticism in Marcus's eyes because he continued. I'm not just doing this because of the bad press, he admitted. I read every complaint that came in. I saw the patterns. And if I'm being honest, I should have caught this sooner. Marcus studied him. He wasn't sure if Langford was saying this just to pacify him or if he really meant it. But in the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was the outcome. Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. This is a list of reputable diversity consultants. They specialize in corporate restructuring, training, and hiring practices. I expect you to work with at least one of them. Langford took the folder and nodded. Understood. Marcus smirked. Good, because if I come back here in 6 months and nothing has changed, he stepped closer, voice lower. We'll be having a very different conversation. Langford didn't argue, because he knew Marcus wasn't bluffing. Marcus turned to leave, but paused at the door. Oh, and Richard, he said without looking back. Langford sighed. What now? Marcus smirked. Next time, don't make me wait. And then he walked out. Back in the lobby, everything felt different. Melissa, the receptionist who had ignored him before, wasn't at her desk. Linda Kramer. Gone. Instead, the employees who remained looked nervous. The whispers had grown louder. Marcus heard his name being spoken in hushed tones, and when he walked past the tellers, one of them actually nodded. A silent acknowledgement. A quiet respect. Because Marcus Tate wasn't just another client anymore. He was the man who changed everything. Marcus Tate walked out of Richard Langford's office, his stride slow, deliberate. The battle had been fought and won. But something in his gut told him this wasn't over yet. The employees who had once ignored him now watched him carefully, some with quiet respect, others with thinly veiled unease. Marcus could feel their eyes on him as he made his way back through the sleek, high-end lobby of Westbridge National Bank. It was different now. This wasn't the same Marcus who had walked in hours ago, who had been brushed aside as if his time was worthless. Now they knew better. Melissa, the receptionist, was gone. A younger woman, someone Marcus hadn't seen before, stood at the desk, her hands folded neatly as she offered a cautious smile. "Mr. Tate," she greeted him, "can I assist you with anything else today?" Marcus paused, looking at her. She was nervous, and he didn't blame her. Her predecessor had set the standard, and it had cost her everything. Marcus gave a small nod. "No, I'm good." He turned toward the glass doors, but as he reached for the handle, a voice stopped him. "Mr. Tate, a moment, please." Marcus sighed internally before turning around. It was Linda Kramer, the same woman who had left him sitting in that lobby for 2 hours, the same woman who had dismissed his concerns with empty excuses. Only now, she wasn't the same polished, indifferent professional she had been earlier. Now she looked wrecked. Her hair was slightly out of place, and she was gripping a manila folder so tightly that her knuckles had gone pale. Marcus tilted his head. "Linda," he said smoothly, "didn't think I'd be seeing you again." She swallowed, her throat bobbing. I wanted to speak with you before you left." Marcus crossed his arms. "I'm listening." Linda hesitated. "Look, She exhaled, shifting her weight awkwardly. "I wanted to apologize." Marcus raised an eyebrow. She kept going. "I was wrong," she admitted, voice quieter now. "I was wrong for how I treated you, for how I let things happen in this branch." Marcus didn't blink. He let her words sit. She was expecting him to say something, to ease her guilt, to offer some form of absolution. But he didn't. Instead, he waited, and the silence grew uncomfortable. Linda fidgeted. "I didn't think." "No," Marcus finally said, voice calm but firm. "You didn't." Linda flinched. "You didn't think twice before making me wait," Marcus continued. "You didn't think twice when you prioritized everyone else over me. You didn't think twice when you assumed I wasn't important enough for your time." Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. Marcus took a slow step forward. "But you're thinking now, aren't you?" Her face burned. She was shaking her head, her hands gripping that folder tighter. I just... Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Are you apologizing because you mean it, or because you know your job is on the line?" Linda froze, and that's when Marcus knew. This wasn't about remorse. It was about self-preservation. Marcus exhaled. "I don't need an apology, Linda." She looked up at him, startled. Marcus straightened his jacket. "I don't need words, I need change." She swallowed. "You want to fix this?" Marcus continued. "Then don't just say you're sorry, do better. Because next time it might not be me sitting in that lobby. It might be someone else, and I won't be here to make sure they get the respect they deserve." Linda blinked rapidly, like she was trying to hold something back. But Marcus wasn't interested in whatever she had to say next. He turned to leave. And this time, no one stopped him. The heat outside was stifling, but the air felt lighter. Marcus walked across the sidewalk, checking his phone. There it was. An official email from Westbridge National. "Loan approved." Marcus smirked. But before he could slip the phone back into his pocket, another message popped up. "Unknown number." "That was quite the show you put on in there." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Unknown number. Westbridge isn't the only bank that operates like that. You just exposed one branch. But what if I told you it goes deeper?" His smirk faded. What the hell was this? Marcus stood still, reading the message again. Then another one came through. "Unknown number. If you're interested in the real problem, meet me tomorrow. Noon. The Goldfinch Cafe." Marcus exhaled, looking up at the sky. This had started as a personal fight, but maybe, just maybe, it was bigger than that. Marcus Tate sat at a corner booth in the Goldfinch Cafe, his fingers lightly tapping against the wooden table. The cafe had a rustic charm, exposed brick walls, hanging Edison bulbs, and the faint aroma of freshly ground coffee. A quiet hum of conversations filled the air, but Marcus's focus was sharp. He was waiting, and he didn't like waiting. The message he had received after leaving Westbridge National Bank had been cryptic but intriguing. Someone had been watching. Someone who knew that his situation at the bank was just the tip of the iceberg, and that meant this wasn't over. Marcus had spent the better part of his morning replaying every moment at the bank. The deliberate neglect, the dismissive attitude, the way the staff had ushered in others while leaving him to sit there like he was invisible. But what disturbed him the most was what came after, the shift in demeanor when Richard Langford, the CEO of the bank, walked in. Suddenly, everyone had time for him. That meant they had always been capable of treating him with respect. They just chose not to. The thought made his blood simmer. And now he was sitting in a cafe waiting for someone who had reached out under the radar. No names, no explanations, just a location and a time. The door swung open. Marcus's eyes flickered up as a woman in a navy blue pantsuit walked in. She was in her late 30s, African-American, with her hair pulled back into a sleek bun. She moved with confidence, her eyes scanning the room before landing on Marcus. She walked over, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. "Marcus Tate?" He nodded. "And you are?" She slid into the seat across from him, placing a sleek black folder on the table. "Janelle Parker." Investigative journalist Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Journalist?" She smirked. "You thought I was FBI." He leaned back. "At this point, nothing would surprise me." Janelle exhaled, then pushed the folder toward him. Marcus hesitated before flipping it open. Inside were documents, emails, memos, employee complaints. The further he read, the more his jaw clenched. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low. Janelle laced her fingers together. "What you experienced at Westbridge National? It's not an isolated incident, it's a pattern. A systemic issue that stretches across multiple branches." Marcus studied her. "And why bring this to me?" Janelle leaned in. "Because you're not just some random guy who got ignored at a bank. You're Marcus Tate. You built your company from the ground up. You have influence, and you have something most people don't. What's that? A reason to fight back?" Marcus stared at her, the weight of her words settling over him. She wasn't wrong. If what she was showing him was true, then this was bigger than him. Bigger than one bad branch manager. Bigger than one bad experience. This was systemic. Marcus flipped through the documents again, his pulse steady but his mind racing. There were internal reports from employees who had tried to flag issues with racial discrimination in customer service, but had been ignored, or worse, retaliated against. One memo stood out in particular. "We cannot explicitly tell employees to prioritize high-value clients over others, but let's ensure that those who don't fit our demographic standard don't take up unnecessary time in meetings." Marcus exhaled sharply. This wasn't just negligence. This was intentional. He clenched his jaw and looked back up at Janelle. "How long have you been sitting on this?" Janelle tapped the folder. "Over a year. Every time I get close, doors start closing. People back out. But you?" She studied him. "You don't seem like someone who backs down." Marcus exhaled. She was right. He didn't. Janelle pulled out another sheet of paper, this one highlighting a list of executive bonuses tied to specific financial practices within the bank. One section caught Marcus's attention. "Client Tier Incentive Program, Executive Rewards for Efficiency in Preferred Customer Engagement." Marcus frowned. "What does this mean?" Janelle smirked. "It means the bank literally pays its top managers to prioritize certain clients over others." Marcus let out a slow breath. He thought back to Linda Kramer, the manager who had ignored him for nearly 2 hours. The way she had smiled at other clients, the effortless way she had made sure they didn't wait, while he had been told to sit and wait indefinitely. She wasn't just ignoring him. She was following a playbook that rewarded her for pushing aside people like him. Marcus's fist clenched. He had spent years breaking barriers in the business world, years proving that he was just as capable, if not more, than the men in expensive suits who had been born into wealth and privilege. And now he was staring at proof that this system wasn't broken by accident. It was built this way. Janelle was watching him carefully. "So," she said, tilting her head, "the question is, what are you going to do about it?" Marcus tapped his fingers against the folder, his mind working fast. There was a press conference scheduled for the following week, one of the biggest financial industry gatherings of the year, and Richard Langford, the CEO of Westbridge National, was going to be a keynote speaker. Marcus looked back at Janelle, a slow smirk spreading across his face. "We're going to expose them," he said. Janelle's eyes gleamed. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." This wasn't just about his experience anymore. This was about every person who had been shut out, ignored, or dismissed. And Marcus Tate was about to make sure they never got away with it again. Marcus adjusted his tie, his reflection staring back at him from the bathroom mirror of the Regency Grand Hotel. His heartbeat was steady, his expression composed, but beneath the surface his mind was electric. This was it, the press conference of the year, a gathering of some of the most powerful figures in the banking and financial industry. And at the center of it all, Richard Langford, CEO of Westbridge National Bank. Marcus had made sure to secure a spot at the event, not as a guest, not as a passive observer, but as a speaker. And when the moment came, he was going to bring the house down. He stepped out of the restroom and into the grand ballroom, where chandeliers dripped with golden light. Rows of seats were filled with journalists, investors, financial analysts, and executives in tailored suits. This was their world, a world that Marcus had fought tooth and nail to earn his place in. As he moved through the crowd, he spotted Janelle Parker sitting in the press section. She gave him a nod, her phone in hand, ready to capture everything. At the front of the stage, Richard Langford took his place behind the podium, his polished voice filling the room. "Westbridge National Bank has always been committed to excellence, diversity, and putting our clients first. We believe in fairness, integrity, and above all, trust." Marcus smirked. That's a bold statement for a man whose company literally pays executives to prioritize white clients over black ones. Langford continued, boasting about growth, success, and corporate responsibility, all while Marcus held onto the folder in his hands. The truth. And when the floor opened for questions, Marcus made his move. He rose from his seat, his voice clear. "Marcus Tate, Tate Strategies." Langford's expression barely flickered, but Marcus saw the brief moment of recognition in his eyes. "My question," Marcus continued, stepping forward, "is about Westbridge National's internal incentive programs, specifically the Client Tier Incentive Program." The room shifted. Some executives stiffened, others exchanged glances. Langford forced a polite smile. "That's an internal matter, Mr. Tate. I'm not sure what you're getting at." Marcus tilted his head. "Oh, I think you do." He raised the black folder, flipping it open. "For the past year, your bank has been offering monetary bonuses to executives who maintain what's referred to in your policy as preferred client engagement." Marcus glanced up. "That's corporate jargon for prioritizing white clients over others." A low murmur spread across the crowd. Langford straightened. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation," Marcus said smoothly. "It's evidence, and I'd like to go over it." Before Langford could respond, Janelle stood up from the press section. "Janelle Parker, the National Post. Mr. Tate, are you saying you have proof of racial bias at Westbridge National?" Marcus flipped to another document. I have a memo sent to branch managers. It states, and I quote, "We cannot explicitly tell employees to prioritize high-value clients over others, but let's ensure that those who don't fit our demographic standard don't take up unnecessary time in meetings." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Langford's smile tightened. Another journalist stood up. "Mr. Langford, do you deny this document exists?" Langford shifted. "We have strict policies against discrimination." Marcus took a step forward. "That's funny because your employees are trained to ignore people like me. I sat in one of your branches for over 2 hours, while others, many without appointments, were helped immediately. It wasn't a mistake. It was policy." Langford's composure cracked. "That's an unfair generalization." "Is it?" Marcus cut him off. "Because when you walked in, suddenly I became a priority. Suddenly the staff who had ignored me all morning couldn't move fast enough to help me. So I ask you, Mr. Langford, was that because I suddenly became important, or because you realized I wasn't just another black man waiting in your lobby?" Silence. A cold, thick silence. Langford opened his mouth, but no words came. And that's when the first camera flash went off. Then another, and another. Reporters were scribbling notes, taking photos, whispering to each other. The story was out. Janelle smirked as she spoke into her recorder. "You were right, Marcus," she murmured. "They were never ready for this conversation." Langford knew it was over. His hands gripped the sides of the podium as questions bombarded him. Will Westbridge National address these policies? Are board members aware of these incentives? How do you respond to claims of systemic bias? And then, the moment that sealed it, a deep voice cut through the chaos. "I think we'll take it from here." The room turned. 3 men in dark suits stood at the edge of the stage, members of the Westbridge National Board. One of them stepped forward. "Mr. Langford, we need to speak now." Langford's face drained of color. Marcus crossed his arms. He had seen this before. Langford wasn't a leader. He was a puppet, a man who had enjoyed the benefits of a system he never questioned, until today. Now that system was crumbling around him, and he knew it. Marcus watched as Langford was pulled aside by the board members, his voice lowered, frantic, desperate. He saw the exact moment when Langford realized this wasn't going to end well for him. And Marcus, he smiled, because this wasn't just about a loan, or one bad experience at a bank. This was about every black business owner, entrepreneur, and professional who had been ignored, dismissed, and disrespected. This was about systemic change. Janelle stepped beside him, slipping her phone into her pocket. "You just changed the game." Marcus exhaled, the weight of the moment settling. "Not just me," he said. "All of us." She nodded. "So, what's next?" Marcus smirked. "Now, we make sure they never get away with this again." As he stepped away from the podium, his phone buzzed. An email. He opened it. Subject: Loan approved. Marcus chuckled. Of course it was. He slipped the phone into his pocket and walked toward the exit, past a group of stunned executives, past a disgraced CEO, past the ruins of a system that thought it could keep men like him waiting forever. Not anymore. Not today. And not ever again. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel like you don't belong, this story is for you. Never wait for permission to be seen. Never let anyone tell you that your presence, your time, or your worth is less than anyone else's. Speak up. Demand what you've earned. And if they try to ignore you, make sure they regret it. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep this conversation going. Justice isn't just given, it's taken.